and back to Visual Studio. Alright, I'm going to start a new project to solve that. I've decided to start using the .NET framework so I can always do my database connection whenever I feel like it. It feels like everything I need to do is the same as the Windows Forms app without the .NET. So I'm going to go with that, and then I'm going to get the name, just so I remember what kind of app I'm building. Windows Form, .NET, and I'm going to call this String Practice Problems. And you can guess that we will be doing array practice problems as well. And you are welcome to look ahead at thecodingbat.com. I'm going to go ahead and create that project, keeping track of where I'm keeping them. Okay, and create. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is give my little form a name. That's going to be String Practice Problems. By Professor Manning. And the first problem is going to be that simple make a BBA, and I'm going to put a button on my form. And that button's going to test the make a BBA function. So I'm going to put there make a BBA. That's going to test the make a BBA function. And let's see here. When I take input, it's going to take strings from input, so I'm going to have a couple text boxes. Text box. And I'll put them here up at the top because they'll be the input for multiple projects. There's text box 1, copy paste for text box 2. And I'm going to go, this time, I'm going to go with the default name of text box 2 and text box 1. I'm going to put into the text, into the actual text of that text box. Where's my text? Text. I'm going to put in the text. I'll call that one's going to be B. Put a couple B's in there. This one, his text will be a couple A's. All right, so, oh, and then I'm going to have to display my results somewhere. I'm going to make that a label. So they're not going to type onto it, it's going to display results. And I'm going to put my label, maybe I'll go put it across the top. Or should I put it here? Maybe I'll put it across here. I think I'm going to put it across the top. And so I want to have it have a fixed size, so I have to change off auto size to be false. And now I can give that label a size. Down a little bit. So arranging things a little bit. I might come back and mess with the fonts later. That's going to be my result. So let's put in here, the text would be C results here. Okay, so I have a text box 1, a text box 2, and oh, what's his name? I better give him a name. His name is label 1. We'll call him label output. He is text box 1, he's text box 2, label output. Okay, so label output is going to display the result of my function doing what it's supposed to, and then I can test it with multiple input strings, and then have multiple buttons testing various of my other string problems. All right, so double click on this now. Oh, did I give him a name? I want him to have a decent name for that button. His name is, where did his name go? There it is, button 1. I'll call him BTN Make ABBA. That's going to be the name that shows up now when I double click. Now, I'm seeing this weird behavior. I don't know if it's because of my screen resolution. If I just close my design view and open it again, I think it fixes it. Let's just see if that happens. I close my design view, view design view, design view? I lost my design view. I'm on my project. There, designer. Apparently the designer doesn't show up unless I have that selected. Okay, so now I come back to my designer and things behave better. So if you see weird screen things, just close the design view and back up. Okay, so now I'm going to double click on my Make ABBA button. And here is where I want to explain in the code what I'm trying to do. So here's how I would, before I have here, I'm going to put also above here, at the very top of my program, your comment header. Don't forget your comment header. String practice problems. Something like that. Author, your name, and anything else you want to put in there about what's that about. So a little header up there. There's plenty more to put in the header. I'm just reminding myself there should be a header. Now, this first function is going to call the make ABBA function, so let's go ahead and define that function. But first, let's see what is the specs for that. Let's see here. Given a name Bob, return a greeting of the that's not the one. Here, make ABBA. Given two strings A and B, return the results of putting them together in the order A, B, B, A. All right, so I'm going to copy that instruction, the specification, copy, go over to Studio and make a comment. Control V paste, puts it all on one line. I'm going to hit a few enters just to fit it in the width, and notice it kindly puts in comment headers there. Now here's the way I like to display my functions. This is I think it makes it easy to read through my code. I'm going to put a little border up above, and then I'm going to define my function. Function make A B B A, and was it all caps? No, it was not all caps. Make A B B A. I'm not going to be fussy on the naming of it. It takes two strings, so that would be, I'm going to call it, should I call it A? I'm going to call it str1 as string and str2 as string. You could call it A and B if you like. And then the function returns a string, so then we put the as string here. I'm going to move my comments right inside of my comment header, or my function header right there. Now, the work of the function. So I'm defining my function, comments about how it's supposed to work, just based on the copy paste of the specs. And it is a very simple function. I can simply return the concatenation of those strings in ABBA format. So str1 concatenated with str2, concatenated with str2 again, and the last thing, add str1 to it. A fairly simple function. Returns a string, has the name make ABBA, takes two strings as input. I don't need to put the by val in here. It didn't say I'm going to be changing the string, so I'm going to assume by val. If you want to make it clear to someone reading your code that may not realize that, I could always type in by val here just to make it clear. I'm sending the value of the string, and I'm returning that concatenation. Let's test it now. Down here in btn make ABBA, what do I want to do? Well, I want to display the string. I'm going to test the make ABBA function using the text box 1 and 2 input, and displaying in the label out. So I can do it on one line because this is a simple test of that function. I can say label output dot text equals the result of make ABBA of what's my first string? It's my text box 1 dot text, that's in text box 1, and the second parameter is text box 2 dot text. With autocompletes flying all over the place. This is the only thing I need to do to test make ABBA. Something that always happens in your coding, you write the code and you write the code to test the code. And when it's a complicated program, you actually hire a separate software person that does the software testing. They often have to know more than your programmers because they have to know how to test the code and read someone else's code and understand what it's doing if it breaks to perhaps help debug it. So software testing or writing testing code is a whole nother field where you're testing what someone else has written. And often you're testing your own code to prove either that the code works or how well it performs. I don't have any red in red squigglies under anything. Let's give it a test. I'm going to go ahead and run it now. Pops up on the other screen here. I've already filled in with 2 texts just to make my testing easy. Let's see what happens if I click make ABBA. There's the pattern it produced. Display the results. So that's the test of the make ABBA, and now I have my platform where I can test other code as I write the solutions to those other problems. I'm going to use this text box 1 and 2 as input if those functions require different strings. And I'm going to maybe adjust the alignment here just so it looks nice. Alright, so that's that first function. Pretty simple one to get you started, build your confidence. Now let's look at the specs for the next problem. Uh-oh. I'm taking tag strings. The first string of the parameter is the tag. The second string is going to be the text that will be surrounded by tags. So again, I'm going to copy paste the specs, Control-C copy, go over to Studio, and what's it called again? Make tags. So I'm going to my VB code. Well, let's create the button that's going to do the make tags, and you can decide where their button displays. Click a button here. I'll put it right next to that one. I could have copy pasted the other one. His text is going to display make tags. That irritating little bug in the display. I don't know if it's the resolution of my display that's messing it up. Let's give him a name before we write the code. And his name, application data, properties, text. There it is. His name is btn make tags. Double click now to go to the code that will be executed with btn makes tags, and I'm going to put right above it the function make tags. So let's go ahead and start my little comment, a little delineator of my function. Write my function make tags. And what does it take? It takes 2 strings as input. I'm going to call it s-tag as string. And what should I call the inner? How about s-text as string? So tags around the text. And it's going to return a string. Remember, it's returning a string, so I add the as string to the end of outside the parentheses of my function. Okay, so this is going to be my tag. And now let's go get the specs and put them in as comments. Copy. Come back to here, start a comment, and paste, and then come back and make it a little more readable. Nice readable comment for what my function needs to do. And whatever computing or commenting style you like, that's your choice as a programmer. Make it look professional and well, easy to read. And I have squigglies over end function. Let's see, because I don't have any code in my function. Yeah, it doesn't do anything. Okay, so I'm going to put less than greater thans around and a end with a slash tag. That seems easy enough. Do you think I can do it on one line? It sure feels like it. Let's see. I'm going to return the less than symbol concatenated with my tag, concatenated with the greater than symbol, then concatenate that with the s text, and then add the less than and slash symbol and the tag and the ending greater than. Verifying that it will look like that. Okay, now in the function I'm going to just do the label out.text equals make tags of text box 1 dot text and text box 2 dot text. So I don't have to keep making text boxes and inputs, separate input for every button to test my functions, but I am making a separate button to test each function. Let's see if it works. With that simple statement there, just check one more time before I run. Less than tag greater than, then the text, then the less than slash tag greater than. Looks like it ought to work. Running to test. And I could even use the AABB. I should see AAA around the BBB. And if I want to add the I and the word yay. Yeah. Oops. Checking my specs. Yep, yay, that's what I'm producing. Seems easy enough. Let's make that a div. And now I have a div. Let's make it a table or a span. So you can see how make tags, just knowing the tag and what goes between there, I get a decent tag. Oh, but I don't get the fancier one where I have an href that would go with a link. So it doesn't produce, it only produces very simple tags when there's no sub-parameters. That would be a whole nother project. Okay, so those are easy ones. I'm going to do one more easy one, and then I'm going to jump ahead to a little more challenging one and leave it to you to do the rest of the easy ones. Any questions about that particular one? Starting out easy, building your coding, getting this sequence of operations to work. Now I'm going to go back and let's do this. Let's do this next one. What's this going to say? Oh, I need to do something with a substring. I'll copy that, and it's going to be called make outward. Make outward. All right. And my program, come to Studio, and let's look at another function. I'm going to write the function this time, and then I'll put in the buttons to call it. Now that I have the making of the button and testing the code. Make function make out word, and now I forgot how many parameters it takes. It takes 2 parameters, 2 string parameters again. Okay. Str1 as string, str2 as string, and it returns a string as string. And I'm going to put in comments the specs and then write the code. And I'm going to put the node on a separate line there. Okay. So given an out string of length 4, such as this, and a word, return a new string where the word is in the middle of the out string. Now, they are giving us input, basically telling us we don't have to worry about error checking. We can assume that that out string is of length 4. I'm going to rename this to be my out string. I'll call it s out, and I'm going to call this one s word, since they refer to them in the comments. So word is going to be in the middle of my 4-character out string. Now this requires me, I'm going to see if I can just go from what autocomplete will help me with to return the proper substring. They gave me that hint, so I think I'm going to have to use that. Let's complete my comment block here. Up here. Add a comment block, starter. And now the code. Well, let's see here. I'm going to be outputting the first 2 characters. Let's put a little pseudocode here now, since this is more complicated. Basically, I'm going to build first 2 chars of word, then the word, then last 2. Sorry, first 2 chars of out, then the word, then the last 2 of out, s out. All right, so the question is, how do I get the first 2 chars of s out? So I'm going to be returning that. So I'm going to return, and I need to return the first 2 chars of s out. Well, let's type s out dot, and they do say substring. Oh, there is a substring function, and now the autocomplete pops up and says return to substring from this instance. I have a start index, and there is one overload. Can I see the other version? I believe the second parameter. Let's try. No, that one doesn't do anything for me. Usually I see a little arrow here that gives me the other form of substring. Let's start it. Let's type the whole thing here. Substring, left parameter. Now I'll see both forms of it, and I can click the down arrow here to see that. Oh, there's a second form of substring that has a start index and a length. So substring, start index, and a length, which is what they hint at up there in the comments. So start index as an integer. Now, does it tell you to start at 0? Yes, it says the 0 base starting character position. So remember that. So let's put 0 there for my first character, because I want the first 2 characters, and to go a length of 2. And the autocomplete is highlighting now the second parameter in the second form of substring. Because I added the comma, let's see if it's looking at the first one, and if I add the comma, I think it will automatically give me the autocomplete. Yeah, for the second one that takes 2 parameters. And you can guess, I'm going to go to the length of 2. So there's my first two strings, my first two characters of the out string. Well, now I concatenate that with the word, that's just S word. And now I concatenate that with the last two characters of S out. S out dot substring Now to get the last two, well, I know if it's a 4-character string, I will do the hard-coded way of I start at character 2, 0, 1, 2, and go for a length of 2. I think this will do it. But I was hoping there is a more general purpose way of getting the last two characters of a string, but I'll use this since they give me the hint. I should use it there in the comments. Now I need the testing button to return first two of the out string, then the word, and then the last two of the out string. So now let's go to my form, create the button, and this is make out word. So new button. I'm going to copy paste this button so I get the same exact size of button. I'm going to get them aligned a little better. And I'm going to change his text to say, where's my text? I'm going to change his text to say make out word. Make out word. And it looks like it fits on the button, so I'm happy with that. And I'm going to give him a better name than button 3 or button 1. I'm going to give him a name of BTN, make out word. And double click now. I'll consider input 1 to be the out and input 2 to be the word. So I'll double click now to produce the event handler. And to test it, let's go ahead and do label output dot text tab to get the autocomplete dot text equals make out word with the two inputs, text box 1 dot text and text box 2 dot text. So there's my testing code with the button. Here's my code using substring. Again, a little more challenging. You have to read through the specs on substring, and that's a very powerful function. Use it all over the place if you're processing text of any sort, generating websites, reading web pages, reading parts of strings. Lots of great string functions. So learning string functions is very valuable. Now I run the program, and let's give it the text, the tags like they had, less than, 2 lessons, 2 greater thans, surrounding my, that should then be surrounding BB. Let's see what we get. Make out word. Oh, it looks like it gets the right results. Let's do exactly their input. They had yay as the input word. Make sure it processes yay properly. Oh yeah, it produces the right output. Now so far it's simple enough where I don't think I can crash my program. We are assuming that it has a length of 4. So if I do this, let's see what happens. Will it crash or will it just ignore I tried to go past index? Let's see what happens. Make out word. Oh, it crashed.
I made it so it can use any length of.
Very good. The last 2?
Yeah.
What did you do to get the last 2?
I just did for the starting position. For the first one, I did 0. For the second one, I did input substring of 1/2 of the length, and that will return the starting position for the second half.
Yep. Assuming you have a string of length 4.
And then
yep.
I just use the 1/2 of the length.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, pretty easy stuff to start out with, and notice most of the code is comments about what this function is doing. You can't overly comment your code. especially when you're learning and you want to go back and use your comments as notes of here's what this function was doing. Okay, now we're ready to go a little more challenging one. Any questions about this one? All right. Okay, let's do the next one here. Go back to my specs. And if you have a choice, otherwise I'm going to kind of skip down a little bit here and look for something a little more challenging here. Oh, let's try this one. This isn't super bad. For every string, return a string for every char in the original. There are 2 chars. Now I did tell you at the top here that as I was writing these and taking them from coding that, I took my specs and fed them to ChatGPT, and they give you the answer. So if you get stuck, you are allowed to use AI, but it will sometimes, especially with the more complex like those older ones, it may give you code that's very difficult or hard to understand, because they'll give they know all about all the extra thing you haven't learned yet and how to use VB. With these, they're fairly simple. I think it'll give you a decent answer. If you get stuck, use that, but then write the code yourself so you understand why their answer, what they're doing there. I'm thinking you can do these, but if you do get stuck, use that to just kind of say, okay, what did I miss here? So double char, given us one string, it's going to return a string with basically every character doubled. As you get more complex too, the solution is you have multiple possible solutions, but the way you write it will help you make sure you understand your coding. And you can always say how I would do it. Let's see how ChatGPT might do it, or any other the AI. So I'm going to do double char. It takes one string. First I'm going to copy the specs, Control C copy, and then go to Studio, and I'm just going to write the double char function, and then I'll do the testing of it. So started my function, my cool little divider between my functions. Function double char stir, I'll just call it stir this time, as string. Function returns a string as string. Comment, paste the specs, massage them a little bit. Return a string where for every char in the original there are 2 chars. This, if I have to think about it at all, I'm going to write some pseudocode. So it looks like I'm going to need to loop and look at every character. So I'm going to put loop, and in the loop, look, basically, add to output string 2 copies, add 2 copies of this char, and I'll call loop on index I at position. So we're going to look at at position I to result the string, and then that. I don't see any other way except looping through each character in the string and making 2 copies of the character at position I. So let's write the loop, and since I know I'm given a string that's a known length, I'm going to use the basic for loop for I as integer equals 0 to stir.length. And I realize the index, if it has a length 4, the index only goes to 1, 2, 3. So I have to do stir.length minus 1. And now I need to keep a result that I'm going to build onto, so I have to declare that before my loop. Dim stir, I'll call it result as string, and initialize it to an empty string. Now I can say inside my loop, stir result concatenates. I'm going to use the ampersand equal to be concatenate onto what's already there. let's see, would be stir at position. Can I do stir bracket I and stir bracket I? That gets me the character at position I. I could have used substring and start at position I and go for one character. That would also work. So I'm going to put in little comments at the end of the line. Could also use stir.substring I, 1. I could have done that. Sometimes substring is, you may remember substring, that may come to your mind first. It will give you the answer. This looks shorter, less to type, so I'm going to use that. If I really cared that this was a super fast algorithm and I want to be as fast as possible, I would actually have to do a test a million times which one that works faster, stir or substring. I'm guessing stir is faster, but I don't know for sure. Now, I'm assuming after the loop is done, well, then I just return result. Return stir result. Now it's time to write the button that will test double char. I love writing little notes to myself and even testing whether it works. I'm going to do it with stir I, and then I'm going to test the other one just to make sure that I have a clear understanding substring would also work. Let's go build the button that's going to test double char. So I come down here, copy paste that button, give him a new text, double char. Give him a name, btn double char. And now double click him to give me the code that will have the name in the function. And again, the simple test of label output.text equals double char, double char, there we go, tab, of the text box 1 dot text. If I only need one input, I'll use the first text box. And let's see if it works. Come down here, give it something more interesting than AAA. Let's call it ABC for the input. Double char should give me AABBCC. Look at that. Now, let's do a little bit of extra here. Does it say that I may have a zero-length string? It doesn't say how long my string is. What would happen if it's a zero length? Let's do the test. Let's leave it blank and see if I crash or it just ignores. I'm assuming that loop will never run because I will start at 0. The length will be, the length will be 0 minus 1. He's going to try to go I as integer equals 0 to -1. I'm thinking it's going to crash if I give it an empty string. Let's see what happens. Oh, it didn't crash. It didn't go I as integer equals 0 to stir length minus 1. I was expecting it to say, wait a minute, I can't go from 0 to -1. It didn't complain. I'm going to do a little debugging there and put a breakpoint there, and now I'll click again. And I see I'm at the breakpoint. I'm going to step over. Oh, so it never ran the loop. So stir length is 0, integer is 0. I thought it was going to give me a sorry, I can't go to a negative number in the for loop. So it just jumped over that loop. When I did the step over, it didn't even do the loop even once. So stir result is an empty string. Now if it said, if you give it an empty string, produce a message saying, sorry, can't work this way, but it didn't. It just says, for every char, there are 2 chars. Let's run it one more time. Let's just make sure it works with just 1 char. And run. Yep. And how about I give it a number? It's going to break if I give it a number? No, it treats the numbers as characters because it's not trying to convert to text. So I can give it a non-number, a completely crazy text, and it doesn't crash because it's just treating everything as a character. If the character can be typed, it will double it. What if I gave it a control A? Oh, it doesn't input. It doesn't give it input if I do a control A. Looks like it's working. All right. Now, if we were doing very rigorous tests, we would actually have a file full of input strings of all possible crazy combinations. I would try to crash my code or test the performance of my code. But that's not what we're being asked to do. We're simply being asked to write the code. All right, now I'm not going to help you with this next one so much. You're going to have to help me now that you're becoming an expert at this. Let's go ahead and do another one, and I'll let you pick which one and see if you can give it a try. Which one would you like to try? Any particular vote? And you can work on it as a team, or try it by yourself and see if you can, a little competition with your fellow students. There's 5 pages. They get a little harder towards the end. You want to try a medium difficulty one?
What about the extra?
Extra, which one?
Extra, and it's the one that's after makeup.
Okay. Extra end. Given a string, return a new string made of 3 copies of the last 2 chars of the original string. The string length will be at least 2. 3 copies of the last 2 chars. I'll give you a clue. It's very much it's similar code used in make out words, so it shouldn't be too hard to build on that. I'll help you build the button, and then I'll let you work on the code. So it takes 1 string and returns a string. It's going to be called extra end. All right, I'm going to, let's see. Since I'm here, I'm going to copy the comment. And let's see, where was that? That was after makeout word, so I'll put it after the makeout word one. So there's the makeout word. So I'll build the extra right here. So it's going to be stir or extra end. So let's write the function first. Function extra end takes a string as a parameter. I'll call it stir as string. It returns a string, so I add the as string. In comments, I'm going to put what this function is supposed to do. And we're given that the length will be at least 2. They're going to start requiring us to do error checking, or I'm going to give you something that you will have to do the error checking. All right, so you have a string. I'm calling it stir. You need to return 3 copies of the last 2 chars of the original string. So in the pseudocode, as I'm thinking what I'll do is somehow I have to get last 2 chars, and I can store them in a string called stir last 2 if I want. And then basically return 3 of those by doing a concatenation of stir last 2. So then return S, S, and another S. That will give me my return. How do I get the last 2 chars? the last two chars of any string. Well, it doesn't say use a substring, but I just use the substring, and I know that I can get a substring that goes for 2 characters. I just have to tell it to start at the second to last character, and then I can get my last 2 chars.
Create the index, let's say,
Well, let's just do a few examples here. Stir dot substring 0, 2 gives me the first 2. Stir dot substring 3, 2 will give me the middle 2 if the string is 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. It better have a 4 and a 5, so it better have a length 6 or it's going to break. What is important about this number that I know I want to go for? I know I want to get 2 characters, so I know that number is 2. What should this number be if I want to get the last 2 characters using substring? Suppose the string has length n. Where do I start? Well, if I have a string of length 6, that means I have indexes of the last 2 are index 4 and 5, because it will be index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has a length 6. If it's a length 3, I'll have an valid index of 0, 1, 2. So I would want to start at position 1 to go for 2 characters more.
So it only starts from 0, right? So it becomes 0.
Well, that's the first 2. Yeah, and the 0 is the first index, yeah.
Yeah, so it would be, yes, like you said, it would be 1 and then 2, 3 would be the last.
Yeah, yeah. So if I have a length n, where would I want to start? If it's a string of length n, my index will go from 0 all the way up to n minus 1. But the n minus 1 would be the last character. N minus 2 would be the second to last character in my string. So if it has a length n, I want to start at position. What do you think? If that has a length n, what's the very last index? N minus 1. So what's the second to last index? N minus 2. Yeah. So I want to start at n minus 2 and then go for 2 characters. That should get me my last 2 characters. Now let's just to break it up into pieces. We could put it all on one line, but let's carefully let's call it S last 2. Let's dim S last 2 as string and set it to be equal to my incoming string stir dot substring starting at stir dot length minus 2 and going for how many? 2. I believe you don't have to put that last character in there, the last index in there. You can just say start at length 2 and go to the end, or start at index length minus 2 and go to the end. You can use the shorter version of substring if you just want to say give me the rest of the string after that. Just to show you the flexibility there. And now we want to return the last 3 copies of stir last 2. So I just do return S last 2, concatenated with S last 2, concatenate with another copy of S last 2. There's my 3 copies concatenated together. So the little logic there was, knowing how substring works, what can I do to get at the last two characters? Let's test it, and then I will show you an alternative that it will be good to know about. But first, let's do our testing code now. Let's create the button that's going to test extra end. So now I'll go to design, make the button. And we did this did come right after double char, so I probably want to put them in the order in the code, but that's not a huge deal. Text is going to be extra end. The name is going to be btn extra end. I keep losing my name. There. btn extra end. Just to make my code nicely readable, I like to give my buttons nice names. And now, double click the button, and it takes me to the code, where I will simply do label out.text equals extra end of the text box 1 dot text. Now, if you want, you could put the button next to the code that it's testing. It looks like when you create it, it likes to put it at the bottom of your code. I'll go with that for now. Let's run it, see if it works, and then show you an alternative that's fun to know. And let's make this more interesting. ABC. I should get BC 3 times. Yay! No matter how long my string is, I'll get the last two characters 3 times. All right, working. Did it say anything about error checking? Let's see here. Return string made 3 copies of the last 2 characters. The string length, oh, it does say the string length will be at least 2. When I read that, that tells me don't worry about testing it for a 0 length string. But that's probably something I would want to do in real life.
So if you did, the only reason it returned BC 3 times is because you did the return.
I had the return.
3 times.
Yep, I had the return. Where'd it go? Where'd my code? There it is. I returned the last 2, concatenated 3 times.
I just wanted to show BC once it was returned.
Yeah. Now, I want to show you something. Say I'm tired of using substring. Couldn't there be a better way? One thing I wanted to try at first would be, what if I gave it a -2 for my starting position? That would sure make sense. And I know in other coding languages, a substring, if you give it a negative number, it starts from the right side. Not so with Visual Basic. So try giving a -2, it'll crash. But I can do this. I can say equals, I'll comment that out, and let's see, what else could I do? I could do a last 2 equals right. Oh, it doesn't have right to left. Okay, let's try string dot right. Oh, I went online and they told me there was a right function that would give me the rightmost 2 end characters, and they must have been talking about a different VB program. String dot copy. No, join. No, I guess there is not a right. Let's just in case. I thought there was a right function. I'm going to go to my friend ChatGPT, as you can if you're looking to do a little research. Is there another way? And I'm going to just go right to my friend ChatGPT and look for Visual Basic rightmost 2 chars of a string. You don't have to format your sentences too much at all. Let's see if it gives us another way to do it. You could have done this on a Google search too, but ChatGPT is doing the search for me. Well, it looks like they don't give you anything other than exactly what we did. We get the length -2. I was hoping there was a right 2 or a better way, or somehow it could feed a -2 somewhere. Looks like there's nothing better than what we did. They did put a error checking in their example. that we test to make sure that the length is greater than or equal to 2 before we try to do the substring, because anything that's shorter, it'll try to go beyond the end of our array and cause a out of range error. So they show you the error checking. That's really hopefully not too hard to understand there. And they did it the same way we did. I thought there was a simpler way because I had done a Google search for Visual Basic, maybe, and I got an answer. Maybe it might have been an old version, rightmost two chars of string, and somebody told me that the right should work, and they were, yeah. Oh, I actually came across a VBA apparently has a right function. I wasn't paying attention. Here, VBA, Visual Basic for Applications, has a right function. Oh, and this I came across this, strings.right. Let's see if that's in there. Maybe I didn't do the strings.right. Let's see if strings plural.right will do it. Let's try. Strings plural.right. Oh, it does have a right. There it is. And give me the 2 character. Oh, I need the string. That's the stir. There it is. There is a right function to give me the last 2 characters of a string. Had to use plural strings, not string. I was so close. So alternative, you can use substring that you'll be very familiar with because it's so useful, but there is the strings.right alternative. And see how I found that out. This becomes your coding world. As you start learning the syntax of a language, you'll say, hey, is there a better way? Google search or toss it to AI and see what alternative they may offer. In this case, ChatGPT didn't give me the alternative. I did my own search and found strings.right. Maybe if I put in my messages ChatGPT strings.right example and see if it comes up with anything. Oh, look at that. I didn't even tell Visual Basic, and it said, oh, I know how to do that. But it didn't do it when I first said, hey, how do I get the last 2 characters? It gave me the substring method. So I had to tell it, hey, is there a way to use strings.right? And all I typed to it was something about strings.right. I didn't even say Visual Basic. So there's one way ChatGPT AI would give me the answer. Okay. Well, let's see. We got time for a couple more. Any particular one? Want to try for a harder one, or is that? First 2?
It's just the first 2 of the string. It's very similar, but we're in the first 2. Right?
Yep. This time it is asking for a little error checking. You're gonna have to have a little logic in there. So if it's an empty string, you'll return empty string. So we'll have to do that. I'm gonna copy my comments and see if I can get the logic. Sounds like a substring problem, but I have to do a little error checking. So copy the comments. I think you'll find this one pretty easy. I'll just start building it and let you see if you can complete it. I'm going to put it right after double char. Write the function first two. Takes a string as a parameter, stir as string. Returns a string, so I type as string outside the parentheses. I can't just do a return. I have to do some logic before that. So let's see if we can capture something. Well, let's put the specs in here now. Copy the specs, and then think about maybe throwing a little pseudocode in there how we're going to approach this problem. As I pretty up the comments, I'm thinking about how would I solve the problem. Put my little comment header above it. Delineate a new function here. Okay, so pseudocode. let's see here. If it's not too long, well, if length greater than or equal to 2, return substring of first two characters. So I'll say substring of first two. That'd be the easy one. Before that, though, if it's a length of less than 2, what do I do? Return whatever there is. That just means I just return the given string. So I just return the string. All right. Given that pseudocode, and it doesn't have to be 2 if statements, what would your code be? You could do an if and an else. You can have multiple return statements.
Keep hearing that the second parameter in the substring method is not the second index, but the length.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think, Louisa? What do you want to? What would the if statement look like to start out? If the length of the string is less than 2, just return what you gave me. That will be the return str. What would that look like? Yeah. I'll go here. How do I tell if the length of the string str is less than 2? What would that if statement look like? What do you think, Arlie? Test whether
You have to put it in brackets and then.
you can use parentheses. You don't have to use parentheses with Visual Basic, but you can put in parentheses. I'm going to skip parentheses because that's one more character to type. Make it look cleaner, maybe. What would you put for the if statement? To test whether my string is less than 2 characters long. What property tells me the length of my string? Str dot. No, I just want to get the length of it. Yeah, str dot length. If str dot length is less than 2, then I can say, hey, I know what I need to return. I'm just going to return str. I put a little comment. Return what you gave me. What does it say? Return whatever there is. That's their what they said there is. That's in their comment. Return whatever there is. So I'll put that in my comment. Now, the code that I put here doesn't have to be in an end if, doesn't have to be in the else, because if I get past this if statement, I know that the length of the string is greater than or equal to 2. That's the only other possibility. So I don't have to put an else. You could, but you could throw it right here and say, okay, otherwise, it's the same thing as that first if didn't happen. I didn't return out of there. I just do a return. And now, how do I get the first 2 characters? This is where you're going to use a substring. What would that look like? Well, the first 2 characters using the substring function of str. I'll give you a start. Str dot. What would I do now? Yeah, substring. Okay, and that takes parameters. I want the first 2 chars.
Oh, wait, so all you have to do is 0, 2.
Yeah, 0, 2. Start at index 0, and once I hit comma, watch the comments. Once I hit the comma, it shows, oh, you must want to use the second version of substring that takes 2 parameters, and length is that second parameter, and that would be the number 2. That gives me my first 2 characters. Now, whether you put it in the else part or after the if does not make a difference. I would bet you the code looks exactly the same. But this is one thing to think about in code. When you want to return a result, as you get more complex functions, if you get multiple returns from inside a function, it can be really hard to figure out what's going to happen and to debug it. As your functions get more complex, I'll declare a string called result, and I would say result equals stir, and then if there's other logic, result equals something else, and at the very end I have one return point. As your code gets more complex, it's easier to trace if you have one return point and you're saving your results along the way. Then you can do breakpoints and figure, oh, what is the result here before I finally return my final. In this case, it's such a simple thing. I either return from here, giving you the original string, or I return from here, giving you your first 2 chars. So I'm going to put in little comments. First 2 chars of stir. Substring is so powerful and so common that in these string functions, we're using substring quite a bit. So your homework is to complete all the substring problems, or all the string problems, and you don't have to work on it all vacation, but try to get it done before you go on vacation for Thanksgiving, and then you can relax. You can dig ahead if you like. I'm going to go to codingbat.com and I'm going to pick more of those array problems as well. There's other string problems that you might actually find entertaining. They had, I think, about 20 of each type, string level 1, level 2, level 3, and then they start talking about array problems. So see if you can solve those. If you have any troubles, I will I will check emails all through break and give you some help if you need. All right. The GUI part of it, I think you'll find pretty nice. Just make it nicely organized. Each of these buttons tests that piece of code. And we're done, so I won't put the testing of that one in here. I'll leave that to you. Have a good one. And now I'm going to see why can't I got to go reset my password for my AnyDesk. Mass.edu, not a robot.
Would this save to my OneDrive so I could work on it on my laptop?
If you copy the folder to your OneDrive,
Would that, okay,
yeah.
that would do it.
I would probably, because of the Visual Studio seems to be kind of slow,
Yeah.
I might keep that as your backup, and when you're going to program it, copy it to your PC, and then save it back to the OneDrive. You could try opening from the OneDrive, but it might be really slow because all that internet traffic.
Yeah.
And it feels like Studio. I don't know if it's CPU or a lot of disk, but it seems to, even with a fast system, it comes up annoyingly slow.
Yeah.
But it's worth a try. Try running it from the OneDrive. In fundamentals, OneDrive has broken for me at the wrong time, so I don't trust OneDrive very much.
All right, thank you.
You bet. Forgot your password.